Hello again, audiophiles. My name is Wave Theory, and I am back to do another review of a piece of audio gear. And if you saw my last video about the ELAC Unify UB52 speaker, you'll see that I have been slowly getting into exploring and hopefully reviewing speakers going forward. Not in place of headphones, which has been my bread and butter, but in addition to. And today I want to take a look at the Parasound Zone Amp V3, or Zamp V3, as it is sometimes called. There it is. And so we'll dive into that today. So again, real quick, my name is Wave Theory. This channel is still relatively new. I am now even reaching out into a new into a newer audience, potentially with speakers. So if you like what you see, please like and subscribe to my channel, and be on the lookout for how to continue to support me going forward. Okay, the Parasound Zone Amp V3, okay, a little speaker power amplifier, right? And yeah, it's not very big, okay, just kind of give you an idea of its size here. It does have a fair amount of heft to it, mostly due to this big transformer that you see in there, okay, as part of the power supply and all of that, so, yeah, good heft. All right, and so what this is it's just a little speaker power amp. It is rated at 45 watts per channel, both channels driven into 8 ohms, 60 watts per channel, both channels driven into 4 ohms, and then you can bridge it into mono to power an 8 ohm load. Don't go below 8 ohms if you do bridged mono. And that is rated at 90 watts if you want to do that. All right, and it lists for $449 US. Okay, so this little amp here, the name implies and the connections imply that it is intended to be used to drive secondary systems scattered about your home. Okay, so it doesn't seem that it is intended to be the main speaker power amp of your 2-channel system. Although, if you have a small room and or you have very efficient speakers, there is no reason that you can't use it in that way. It just seems to be intended and built to be easy to use in a multi-room and like a whole house audio setup to drive the secondary systems. Okay, why do I say that? Well, for one thing, it is called the Zone Amp. And for another, if we take a quick look at the back channel, we see a bunch, back panel, not channel, excuse me. We see a bunch of connections that are here to make it easy and convenient to use in multiple rooms. Like you see right here, power trigger ins and outs. Okay, you also see switches and options for adjusting auto power on and off with signal. So like if you're familiar with subwoofers, many subwoofers will automatically power on when they detect a signal, and they will power off when they don't detect a signal for a set amount of time. And this has that feature in it as well, with a dial that you can adjust the sensitivity to that signal detection. All right, and so it also has two sets of RCA pair connections here. One of them is the stereo input to come from the preamp or the DAC, and another is just the loop out, just to, okay, if you want to daisy chain a bunch of these together, all right, and send it onto another amplifier. And then, of course, you've got the 5-way speaker binding posts here for the speakers. Yeah, so again, like the name and the connections all imply that it is a small amplifier to use on secondary systems. Okay. I have been using this amp primarily to power the speakers on my desktop for near-field listening. I do use headphones a lot, I review headphones a lot, but sometimes, headphones just by their nature become fatiguing after a while, and it's nice to have speakers there as a switch up. Or if you want to share a YouTube video with the family or something, putting speakers on, okay, instead of just having the headphones on and whatnot. Sometimes get up and move around the room, like, oh, I have to walk to the bookshelf a lot and come back while I'm doing work and all of that, and so it's just more convenient to have speakers playing rather than be tethered to a desk. So that is primarily where I have used the Zamp V3, and I have used it to drive mostly a set of Definitive Technology SM45 little bookshelf speakers that have been around for a long time, and they are pretty good little speakers. Okay, they are 8 ohm. I think only like 87 or 89 decibel per watt sensitivity, something like that. So, not the easiest load, not the most difficult load, but in a near field setup, like this amp handled them really well. And more lately, you saw me mention it or heard me mention it maybe in my ELAC speaker review that I have been using this little amp to drive a set of ELAC Unify UB52s in near field. And those speakers are also, I mean, they're 6 ohm, but they're like 85 dB sensitivity, so not real sensitive either. I keep bringing that up to say that this little amp has the power to push those speakers that are, middle to low in their sensitivity pretty well. Nice full sound to them. It doesn't seem like there are any obvious frequency response dips because of the power in that, particularly in near field. Now, I did try the Zamp V3 powering my bigger definitive technology speakers for a while, the SM55s, which are bigger than the 45s and I think even a little bit less sensitive. And powering those in my bigger 2-channel system in a larger listening space where I and the speakers formed approximately an equilateral triangle of side length of about 8 feet. And in stereo mode with those bigger speakers, it did struggle a little bit. Like, it got plenty loud, but it didn't have quite the dynamic punch that I'm used to getting from those speakers. So that's the one place where this, the size and just the little bit lower power became an issue here, was with low sensitivity speakers in a medium size-ish listening space in a classic 2-channel setup. Plenty of volume, just lacked a little bit of dynamic punch. But otherwise, this little thing powers a lot of speakers quite well. Now, if I were using really sensitive speakers like Klipsch or Tektons or something like that in my bigger 2-channel system, this would probably be just fine power-wise, okay, and all of that. So, yeah, as far as power, it works great in a near-field setup. I mean, and look at the form factor. It's tiny, okay, not really, it's just not very big. It sits well on a desk and whatnot. Oh, by the way, on my desk I use the pre-out of my Shit Asgard 3 head amp, so I use the Shit Asgard 3 as a preamp for this, and that has been working well. I know that's not the ideal setup, but for what I use it for, that has been just fine. Okay, the sound signature on this little thing. I mean, it's Parasound, so it leans a little bit warm, but it's still clean and clear, with pretty good detail retrieval, but it's relaxed detail. It's not aggressive or forward in that detail. It just goes about being itself, doing its business, pulling out the details and not shoving them at you. The spatial presentation is pretty good. Like I mentioned, like with the ELACs, those speakers just have excellent spatial presentation for the money. And the Zamp V3 does nothing to get in the way of that I can tell. Even my little SM45s, the Def Techs, those also have really good spatial presentation, and the Zamp V3 did nothing to get in the way of that. Okay, so I mean, it's a good sounding little amp. Okay, its form factor is friendly for smaller rooms, sensitive speed, smaller rooms, desktops, that sort of thing. So, yeah, it's a really good amp. It's definitely a step up. Like, I had been powering my SM45s with like a 2010 model, year 2010 model Onkyo AVR entry-level thing that was rated at like 100 watts per channel, 6 ohms stereo, and it sounded good, but when I put this in the system, like it really woke up. Like, so I know this is a $450 unit, and that receiver was like a $300 unit when it was brand new, something like that, maybe $400. And it's a home theater receiver, so it's not really a fair comparison, but this was a big step up, like a really big step up in performance on that. So, yeah, it again lists for $450. You can occasionally find it secondhand for $250 and maybe even less, and it's just a really stupid good deal there. So if you are looking for a speaker amp that is warm, just not super warm, but leans warm, but is still clear and detailed and a little bit more relaxed in its presentation, but still has some nice, good dynamic punch to it when it, with a proper load. Like, look into this one. Okay, it fits on a desk well. Of course, it's an option if you're looking at a higher end whole house system and you have in walls somewhere that you need for background listening. This has all of the connections and all of that you need for that. Okay, yeah, I really like this little amp. I plan on keeping one around for a while because it's a great desktop amplifier reference for me. All right, so yeah, good little amp. Oh, yeah, it does have this headphone output on the front. I've actually never used it. I mean, it might be okay. I just have never used it. Okay, because I really want to use this for speakers, so that's how I use it. All right, so yeah, good little amp. If you are in the market for a desktop amp or a small zone amp, or you just have very sensitive speakers, and in your 2-channel system, this for under $500 is a really good buy. So yeah, I give it my recommendation. So I am Wave Theory. This has been the Parasound Zone Amp V3 review. Please check out my written work, which is still mostly headphone reviews on HeadFi and Hi-Fi Guides forum. And if you like what you see here, please like and subscribe and support me going forward. So thanks again. And until next time, enjoy the music.